那是不是我们就很快的这个开始这样子？好。
Hi, yes. My name is Andrew. 李若樽。朋友还在帮我放模型，所以我先讲一下。I'll be speaking in English, so if you don't understand my English, please turn on the translate. Or if you don't like my voice, you can turn on the translate as well. Yeah, it's fine. I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here. It's been an electric 3 days. I had a lot of fun with the rest of my friends. So yeah, let's get started. The name of my project is Satori Sento. My thesis is an architectural project that kind of tries to struggle with how we might live with the understanding that disaster and ruin is so inevitable in our lives. And how do we do that? Not in despair or anger, but in repair, in routine, and in ritual. So hold on, there's a lot of things here. As cultural critic, Vizek kind of says that no one really can think or imagine a possible alternative to capitalism any longer. And to me, this is a critical thing, right? That means as architecture, people in the architecture industry who are so concerned with world building, we can't really come up with alternatives to the current architecture of spectacle, of ambition and permanence. So to me, Japan it makes this post-growth condition especially legible with a shrinking population, slow economic contraction, and climate precarity. Tokyo is a city suspended between futures. You can see in my drawing that I try to convey that beneath the surface level of constant development, you see a city of pauses, of cracks. And I try to show nature as externalized here as well. It's kept as an aesthetic backdrop, one that we kind of externalize all the output of capitalism. So my question here is, what does architecture do when the dream of perpetual growth fades? So against that condition, Wim Wenders' Perfect Days follows the character Hirayama, a sanitation worker in Tokyo. And his life is structured by all these small rituals that we see in the movie, right? That he goes through every day, cleaning the toilets, watering the plants, bathing in the Sento. So his life, there's not much drama, there's no climax to this whole narrative, just a lot of care, repetition, and rhythm. And in this way, the Sento becomes not escape, but a restoration. And that, to me, is where the Satori perspective begins. Not in resistance, but an attunement to what is already breaking. A turn away from ambition and towards attention to what is in our lives. So this project has a theoretical spine, which is that of Arata Isozaki's latent ruin ideas. So you can see here that he has this 1968 photo montage, Reruin Hiroshima, and it kind of catches the city caught in a recursive devastation, a cycle, and each act of architecture or rebuilding is in itself a rehearsal for the next ruin. And to me, I treat this every day as a fissure. If we were to treat every day as fissured from within, then all these disasters that we are to experience, earthquake, market recession, they are not what breaks the world, they are just what reveals what is already broken. So the Sento, to me, is the perfect typology to explore this inquiry. This first drawing of Edo period Tokyo situates the origin of the bathhouse within a broader urban commons, a frugal ecology where building salvage timber and clay tiles from nearby ruins, embedding reuse into construction as ritual. And I think it offers a vision of what architecture looked like when it was synchronized with the cycles of nature. And subsequently, let me just skip ahead. The Sento saw itself go through several adaptations, with the need of each period. The Edo era water conservation, shrine-inspired rebuilding after the Great Kanto earthquake, and the post-war concrete pragmatism that we see in Tokyo today. And to me, what I would propose is that the decline of Sentos in Tokyo is just a reflection of the fact that we are moving into a new age with new different needs that we need to critically understand and address. So from this project is kind of situated in this empty site in Mikawashima. It is a quiet working class neighborhood in Arakawa ward, but since 5 years ago, the government has had plans to redevelop the site into a strata development of 20 stories. But after COVID, the whole thing just stopped. The residents have no idea what's going on. Oh my gosh, okay. From the beginning, the Sento is built from new and salvaged parts. Old door, shattered tiles, warped window frames, and exposed timber frame uses the same 2x4 timber construction that we see in Tokyo's residential vernacular. They are material allegories, what Walter Benjamin calls, ruins in the realm of thought. Their presence foreshadows the future as disassembly, and we see entropy not as failure, but rather as an expectation. Okay, this is the model in its half destroyed state. It is intentionally half destroyed. Each of the 6 components here unfold at their own pace, and kind of depicts architecture as a provisionality rather than a permanence. These are the drawings that depict each of the 6 spaces. My drawings are layered. Unfortunately, I do not have the physical ones here, but they are layered such that you do not see it as a before and after or the event, but rather what I hope to portray is the insistence and the persistence of what stays between the 2 states of everyday and the disaster. Okay, I have 1 minute left. Okay, let's go. So each of the drawings kind of have 2 layers, and what I do not think I have time to go depict each of them one by one, but across all of them, what you will see is the program and everything changes, but what is always constant is the material and the routine. And that is how I seek to bring, allow the architecture to persevere despite, what happens there on site. So the program changes, as I said. So the previous one was the Sento, but in certain times of day, during ruin, it falls apart. And what happens there is, I see some of the critics are like, what's going on? So, what happens here is when the Sento falls apart, the pits are used for rubber collection, and it turns into the building workshop, stuff like that. And then the actual bathing takes place in the Rotembro. This is the library. So it turns into, I'm just going to skip ahead. It turns into a laundry area with a cafe for the community kitchen. And this is the Rotembro, which in disaster turns into the everyday Sento, and the community kitchen, which with a central hearth. So heat is shared and pooled in times of disaster. There are several other important aspects of this entire complex, such as the farm, and of course, there's a mixed-use area. Yeah, so I'm just going to quickly conclude. My bathhouse is not a fixed form, but a field of flows. What's important here is the flow of heat, water, and human presence. Benjamin's dialectical image of past and present colliding in the flesh reminds us that meaning emerges not from harmony, but from rupture. And this design begins with permanence. It doesn't begin with permanence, it begins with fragility. I'm just going to pass this to you. Each element is not an endpoint, but a preparation. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, as a curator, the Singapore curator, I selected this project because I slowed down a bit, but because let's say the idea behind it is about the earthquake or disaster. That the probability now, the great earthquake, the probability in 30 years, next 30 years, 80%. That means, that actually everybody in Japan is already worrying about it. And there is that kind of a prediction, a kind of implant, the people's mind that growing already. That means, it's already, earthquake is happening in the mind of people. That's why people are preparing and so on. So this project, actually try to respond to it. How do we kind of physicalize, this idea of a ruin as a new building, at the Sento? At the same time, they actually just, the ruin in people's mind. How this, the mind, the ruin actually allows, people to behave, when the disaster occurs. I think, all these are the questions that this student really worked on, I guess. So, yes, that's about it. And then okay, so maybe a question, if you could, elaborate, in 5 seconds. Okay, 5 seconds.
Okay.
You can talk about, why you chose, the particular way of, using the presentation, the black and white, that a lot of people.
Okay. Someone remarked to me recently, isn't this kind of aesthetic, to try and aestheticize disaster, and isn't that a bit insensitive? And you know, I spent the whole night thinking about it, but I think as long in my process, I was really just trying to focus on what I think is important, which is the everyday acts of routine. And if there is some form of beauty, I would say that it is from that persistence that we see in these drawings. I mean, and in terms of why I chose to layer, I mean, the fact that I'm choosing an architecture of sorry, I'm trying to skip to the end of the presentation. Can you just help me go to the end of the presentation if that's possible? Yeah, so as I was throughout this whole process, I was doing a lot of like process sketches. And in that process, because I'm playing with two different states, across many different states actually, more than two, because we're not sure what the disaster that's going to hit is going to be, right? So a lot of my process was always done on butter paper sketches up to like this thick. So in that process, like I kind of realized that butter paper would be the ideal to kind of portray the latent understanding of what ruin is when we look at architecture. Yeah.
Yeah. So the consistency of the activity, you know, there, whether it's a peaceful time or disaster time.
Yes.
It's that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you, yeah, please. Another sentence.
日本語で、とても面白い、プロジェクトだと思っています。で、私たちは東京から来ているんで、銭湯っていうのは、とても馴染みがあるんですけれども、非常に、現代においてすごく特殊なパブリックスペースだと思います。台湾にはあるんだっけ、銭湯って。パブリックバスありますか？台湾。
I'm sorry, the translate is still back on someone who's got help.
ある。
そう、
そう。そう。で、そう、これ、最初の4番は、日常的に使える、やっぱりみんなでお湯に使える場所ってすごい特殊だなって思っていて、それを選んだのがとてもやっぱ面白いなって思ったのと、
And the translation isn't working, I'm sorry.
It doesn't work?
Yeah, it doesn't work. I'm sorry.
I'll try in English, okay. I'm really curious that you chose Sento for the project. It's really special place in Tokyo as a public space. And you are for the meaning of the public. I think it means we need to think a lot of layers of the how you say, like time and history, maybe society and culture, people, kind of people. And then you chose the disaster, ruins for the next layer of the public. And it should be, or in 80 years or 100 years, we are going to be in that ruins.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the kind of maximizing the meaning of public is very, strong sense for me.
Okay.
Thank you for very powerful presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a how can I say, long experience of deconstruction from disaster 2011. I know I took part in the disaster 2024, in Noto Peninsula.
Yeah.
So that's a very move to be that you work. However, the disaster, how can I say, to calculate or to estimate disaster very precise is not possible.
Yes.
So maybe you have to, first you have to survey very carefully about the city itself.
Yes.
So to measure vulnerability of the city itself.
Yeah.
That's a starting point.
Okay.
But in your project, there are no survey. The period. You just take in a kind of strong idea from Isozaki's sketch. The very poetic. I mean,
yeah.
in my opinion, that your presentation is very beautiful, but too poetic, too anti the disaster.
Yes. I think it was quite intentional that I wasn't trying to calculate, because a large part of what my project was about is that there are limits to what I can do, or what technology can do, what architecture can do to shelter us from, everything around us. Yeah. So in that way, it was trying to be open and accepting that everything will fall apart in that way. Yeah. Thank you.
谢谢刚才第一位同学。